What up, guys?
What is happening? We are on episode 2.
Season 2, episode 2 of the Wilderness Whiskey Roundtable. I'm Ty.
And I'm Max.
And you are here. We're here.
Welcome back.
If you tuned into our last episode, we got back into it. Had a little bit of a hiatus here for figuring out all of everything. Maxwell being gone at the Camp Lake St. Joseph, put a little bit of time off, which was all right. Life got a little bit busy, as it does for everybody in the summer.
Yeah, everything was crazy. Hopefully you tuned into episode 1 and actually tuned into our special edition episode 2 for
the St. Paul Ice Show.
Yeah.
We're pretty excited to talk about all of our spoils. Actually, come to think of it, I never did talk about all of our spoils.
Oh, you save a little something for episode 2?
I suppose I did, huh?
What do you got? What do you got?
That little Eskimo bag, the ice fishing bag that we got on sale.
Yeah.
I picked that up for my dad, who comes out and fishes with us, which we kind of talked about in the special dish.
Yeah, shout out to Reeds again, I guess, because we got a pretty good deal on a little rod case at the end of the day.
6-pole?
4-pole? I think it's a 4.
4-pole.
I think it's
You're
a
right.
4.
You're right.
4 with tackle storage in the middle.
Yep.
It's 2 and 2 on each side.
Yep. It's like a hard soft combo.
It's kind of cool. I've looked at it a couple times because obviously I'm hard off on Eskimo stuff.
Yeah. You're hard on for Eskimo stuff,
yeah,
too.
just a freaking brand whore over here. But it's a cool case. I mean,
it actually is pretty cool. It is expensive. I mean, I think regular retail price is like $126.
Yeah, I think the funny thing was he was looking at a different one that I don't think was even as good a quality, and it was even more expensive. And then we're like, well, let's see what our other options were.
Yeah, we were finagling a little bit, and
and
he brought us over to the Eskimos.
We went in between like that hybrid case to like the full soft-sided cases, which suck.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've hooked so many jigs and spoons and shit into them, and you got to cut the case, and they fucking suck.
I will tell anybody, regardless if you're going every other weekend or like once a month or something, you're just like, I just want something to carry the 3 poles I have. I still wouldn't recommend the soft-sided bags.
No.
They're built terribly. That mesh stuff in there that's supposed to like mitigate hooking, it doesn't work.
No, and
I've cut barbs off my hook because I don't want to tear apart the bag.
And see, I've cut the bag because I don't want to cut my hook.
Yeah, so
they're just not good.
No, it's terrible. Don't do it. What I would suggest is, honest to God, spend the extra $25 because if it's really all you can afford, I totally get it. That is what it is.
Yes.
No bad blood there. But if you got the extra $25, go buy the Eagle box.
Yes, the Eagle Claw box. I'm not super sold on the Eagle Claw box either because I have too much shit.
And
I don't think the Eagle Claw is the answer from that standpoint. But also, I'm going to say, if you don't have the extra $25, you're still better off just throwing it in a fucking bucket.
Yeah, 100%.
You might just be better off just taking a bucket out with 3 rods in it.
And sticking your rods in there. Because I've had so many issues.
Those bags suck.
And they are kind of expensive for what you're getting out of it. You're
talking still $40 for a bag.
Yeah, even the Shields one I think is $30. So they're just not meant for what you think. If you're just putting bare rods with no hooks in there,
fine.
Yeah,
but who's doing that?
You're right. If you want to line your hook every time you use the bag, then hey, more power to you, buddy. Good luck. But other than that, I wouldn't recommend. So Dad was looking at the Eskimo, really liked it. Couldn't talk the guy down, so I waited till the end.
The very end, we're talking walking out the door, very end.
People were cleaning up their spots, and finally,
half the vendors were gone.
Yeah, I'm like, you don't want to load this up.
You got way too many of these.
I'm like,
what's one less?
Here's the price point. what's your don't want to take it home price? And the guy gave me an extra 25% off. So,
which is clutch.
got a bag for $70.
Yeah.
That's worth 126. Yeah. So,
and I think like I said, I've looked at it. I carry too many rods for just a 4-pack rod holder, so it just doesn't fit for me. But for him, I think it's a great answer.
And honestly, too, I would argue for what you just said, you just carry too much rods in general. Yeah. When we went fishing last time, we carried the fucking house out with us again. So,
well, of course we brought the house with.
No, I'm talking. We packed.
You're talking the whole house.
The kitchen sink was in that fucking sled.
No, it wasn't. We condensed down from the last time.
I'm calling nonsense, Poopy Pants, because it was like I looked at 4 rods laying on the ice again, and I'm like,
I brought less stuff than the first time.
Oh yeah, okay. So you're not wrong, but you're still could use some work.
Brought too much stuff.
I argue what I carry in the Eagle case is too much. Like I don't use all the poles I have now, and I'm like, last year I spent such a fucking an amount of money on all these poles, and now I'm just like, okay, realistically I could probably get away with 3 panfish poles and maybe 2 walleye poles, fit them all in that box, have everything I need at all times, and then just carry on my tackle, which I do anyways.
Right.
Nobody likes tying tackle, but also it's not that big of a deal.
No, and that's the thing too, is like everybody's like, oh, you should have a technique specific rod, and I am so on board with that, especially after guiding for the last season. But yes, I totally get, like, not everybody has to have a dozen rods. Or
it gets to be overwhelming.
A dozen and a half.
Or 2 dozen on the ice with you. With an already cramped situation because we're pulling out a track sled and it's really hard to dig through all your shit to get to mine. Yeah, no,
a lot of times, like, we run a 2-front approach. Especially when we're pan fishing, we're running something semi-aggressive and then we're running something semi-finesse. You might only need 2 rods. I'm not gonna knock the weekend warrior that doesn't, only has 2 rods, because it checks out. It makes sense. I might have too much stuff.
Yeah, it's easy to get there though, because I used to be way more like rudimentary until you and I started fishing pretty heavily together.
Jesus Christ, is blaming on me.
And I wasn't going to directly blame it on you, but it was like my thought process changes a little bit, because I'm like, well, shit, do I need more because Max is using more? And it's, again, not directly blaming you, but then I'm like, you look at some of these clam guys and like these other guys who are doing this, and they have like a ton of shit with them all the time. But also, sometimes I think just going out and bringing what you need and being able to set up and take down really easily has its own value to it.
Yeah, convenience is a huge factor at the end of the day. There's a lot of situations where, we're on a time crunch. Or, more than likely not, we're on a time crunch. We can fish until this time period. You get out for a couple hours. You run and gun. Yeah, maybe that's the time to condense your stuff down. A lot of these guys that we sit down and idolize and watch every day,
they're doing it all day.
They don't have that, right? Like, they have that luxury of...
That's their job.
Correct. And, that's not your everyday person. Yes, is it more technically efficient? Technically, when you're talking like technique efficiency, yes. Like, is there a rod that's better for jigging a tungsten versus jigging an ultra finesse lead versus jigging a spoon versus hole hopping versus dead sticking? Absolutely. I'm not going to lie. Like, these rod companies have it dialed.
Right.
But when you're sitting here talking, like, I only have 3-4 hours to go out, run, gun, fish, like...
What's it for me to just bring 3 poles?
Right. Like, at the end of the day, those are the scenarios where we fish with two rods and that's it.
Even so, we went out. Would have been last Friday.
Friday, yep.
I fished with the same 2 rods the whole time, just because
So did I.
we were popping holes like a mother. I never switched much other than like maybe bait. I tried plastics and then I switched to.
I fished with the same rod the whole time.
Yeah.
Because in that situation we weren't seeing a ton of fish. I was going aggressive. I was trying to call fish in. Like, we weren't marking fish that were finicky to where I was like, I need to go to my jig rod. I'm sitting here ripping and you know, a spoon or a Tikka flash or something like that that's a little more aggressive the whole time. I didn't switch.
Yeah. So like you start questioning. You're like, fucking A, do I got too much shit now? And I've got a whole tackle box worth of shit, and it's all the same, and not all the same, but like I've got a little bit of everything, and then some things I've got a lot of a little bit of everything.
Yeah, right. Or too much of everything.
And so then it's like, okay, I gotta stop buying tackle.
And that's the weird
that doesn't
mentality
happen
that you
even.
trick yourself into too, is like, oh, like fuck, like, you know, what if they're hitting white Wonder Bread and I break off? What if a pike comes in and you're like, I need 6 of them?
And then it just never happens.
Where it's more likely like, okay, it happens. The fish aren't on that tight of a pattern. You can catch them on a yellow Wonder Bread, and you can go buy a white Wonder Bread if you broke it off. You
Yeah.
don't need 6 of them.
Yeah, I feel like, and maybe it was last year specific because you and I bought a ton of tackle last year.
Yeah.
Like because we made several trips to Shields last year. Now, part of it, mind you, I think was part of like just not being able to get out on the lakes and actually be fishing. So we were just doing things that like pertain to fishing.
Yeah, just something to like cope.
Yeah, it was like we're still doing ice fishing stuff because we're buying ice fishing stuff that
I will say Brands did a really, really good job of like, last year was a really good year to come out with a bunch of new shit that just like tricked fishermen into buying stuff.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing of it too, is just like tricking us dumb bastards into buying more shit. Not all of us are dumb. Some of you guys are smarter than us even.
Yeah. But like, you know, like 2 years ago Wonder Bread was hot, so they came out with like 3 different styles of Wonder Bread. And then like, you know, it subtly enough, all of a sudden gold was the hot color on red. So you still had to have Wonder Bread or you were going to get left behind, but you also had to have a shit ton of gold stuff. And like they came out with the Tikka Flash, and like the Tikka Flash was the new rage. So you had to go buy Wonder Bread and gold and Tikka Flash, and you had to like, there was enough new stuff that it was like they caught the fishermen.
Something that fucked me up recently about kind of this exact topic, and it actually still kind of resonates with me even when we were up at the ice fishing show. I still didn't buy nearly as much as what I probably typically would have.
Yeah.
And that was, some guy came in and it was like a TikTok or Instagram Reels video. And he goes, y'all are buying all this Sitka and different camo and this and that, and then you're all buying all these different lures and this and that, and it's like my granddad used to go out in his flannel and a pair of
His
jeans
overalls, yeah.
and an orange hat, and he said he killed more deer than anybody ever. And then same thing applied for fishing, basically, is Grandpa used to take some shit from the shed and he would drill a hole in it and he'd put it on the end of a frickin' hook and he's pulling 26-inch walleye out of the hole all day long.
Yeah, you know, I sit and I think about that shit too, is like, okay, yes, not wrong, right? Like, that did happen. There's a lot of tangible evidence of that stuff happening. Now, there's a lot of variables that come into play with stuff like that too.
Oh, 100%.
You know, like, we're talking pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Pressure is a huge one. You know, stuff has to, like, progress with pressure. Like, the amount of fishermen and hunters we picked up over the that year that we can't really talk about, where where everybody was like trying to like pick up a new hobby and stuff. Like,
Yeah.
how many more outdoorsmen did we pick up over that time period where, like, just the sheer volume of people out chasing after this or that, you know, like, I don't think a fish or a deer are the smartest animals in the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, but I do think like pressure does matter.
I agree. But then also, something that really, for me, makes me question all of it is when you see numbers. So, like this year, once again, in the state of Minnesota, somebody told me, and I'd never checked it. So, this could be completely wrong. It could be just hearsay. But somebody told me that numbers for deer tags were 10% down.
Sure.
Now, over a population of the whole state, that's actually a pretty substantial number.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, this isn't the first year I've heard something like that. Last year was down. The year before that was like midway. You know, it was like maybe average. So like, you hear stuff like that, and then you really question, okay, what is changed, and then where is the meet point? Because also, I don't know the numbers of what fishermen look like back in, especially like from like my great grandpa, because he was always
70s, 80s,
right. So he was always big into fishing, and so were all of his buddies, and so was like his graduating class of say 30 people, 20 people, right? All of them did the same thing. Like, I've heard stories about it where like all the men in my class were pretty much on the same lake, the local lake, whatever that may be, and we're all fishing. So then it's like, okay, advancements in technology also puts more people on the ice. Sure. But are there more? I don't know.
Well, and my question more so is, with the advancements that have progressed, maybe there's the same amount of people, but they're still doing something different, right? Like, at the end of the day, like, I don't think you can go out to the lake ice fishing and put a 16th-ounce standard jig head on and a minnow and catch fish like you used to be able to catch them. I genuinely don't believe that. I also don't think you can go out to the field and put oversized shell decoys out, which is the only thing that they had back in those days, or, you know, plywood cutout silhouettes. Like, I've seen progression on how these animals have changed to where I genuinely believe, like, you have to change with them.
Are they changing, or are we being marketed, though?
I do think they are, because at the end of the day, like, I know that I can't go out with silhouette decoys and kill them like I want to, or like those people were. You know, like, the progression. Like, I think from a waterfowl standpoint, like, I see these phases. You know, silhouettes were huge over the last 5 years. Well, I go out and I put out a big silhouette spread. I can't kill them like I used to.
And that's where more than just like one or two factors play into it too. Obviously, the factors of, if you want to argue it, it would be like changing migration patterns due to changing climate patterns, or, you know, like something along those lines too, to where you're like, yes, it's different, and maybe you do need to do these things because now it ultimately just is harder.
Right.
But for you, that's where this question too, it isn't an easy yes or no, black and white, up or down. It's very complex, because there's more than one factor that in the last, well, if you're talking from 70s, 80s till now, we're talking 40, 50 years of change. And we see it. We see the difference in ice quality. Our winters have been warmer recently, like just basic stuff like that. So like, your bird migration and your fish population and your fish movement, it's all changing super
different.
rapidly.
Right.
So it's not a black and white, but
it's interesting because I see, like, especially in waterfowl, like a 5-year swing a lot of times. So, like, you look back in the day of, like, there was no advancements in blinds. So you were hiding on fence rows, tree lines, things like that, right? You were limited to shell decoys or silhouettes, right? You were limited to pretty rudimentary decoys. It worked. You killed birds, right? Now the advancement comes into play where layout blinds exist. Full body decoys exist. So what does everybody do? They move away from the fence rows, the tree lines, they move to the middle of the field, they put out all these full body decoys. It looks really real, it's something different. You're killing birds. Well, guess what? Now these birds all of a sudden are hitting field edges again. Now all of a sudden the popular thing becomes A-frames. You're hiding A-frames along field edges. You're hiding them along tree lines. You're creating your own field edges. You're creating your own, like, rough, hard lines because they don't want to be in the middle of the field. So is it still a marketability thing because of how the industry progressed? Possibly. Because, you know, as these new things come out, it allows you to do different things. The birds respond. Now you go back to a rudimentary style of, like, okay, I can go back to field edges because now everybody's out in the middle of the field with full bodies and layouts. The birds don't like it.
You're going to pick up on just basically essentially going backward. So then that's where this is specifically more for me for fishing, just because I'm a little more like tenured in that. I don't know a better word for it, but whereas you're more into the hunting side of things for knowledge. So like for me, now I'm thinking consistently, especially for probably the last 10 years, we've been pushing basically different sizes, different colors, all these like big flashy, like look at me. And I think there is definitely plenty of research that's done by these companies to say, like, I can't say they don't work because that would be just bullshit.
Right.
But also, it's been that many years, 45, 50 years. Who's to say going
back to split shot, single hook, and a minnow?
Right. That maybe that doesn't provide you better, because what if these fish do just notice patterns? I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but you question that.
That's
stuff.
A very interesting fact, because like when you do look at it from other wildlife aspects, you see trends like that, and we haven't seen one like that in fishing yet. What goes to say that like the industry isn't still just feeding you, but we've switched to a style of fishing that is more effective, going away from that specific marketing? Like, that's a very valid point at the end of the day. And there are people that are still, at the end of the day, they're going single hook, minnow, dead stick style fishing, and they're crushing them.
They're producing.
There's a reason that dead sticking does exist in this industry. Is the marketability so powerful though that that might be a more effective way of fishing in this day and age?
Yeah, like
for the next couple years or 5 years or whatever it may be. Who knows how long it lasts before everybody jumps on the bandwagon and before something flashy and gaudy becomes more relevant again. I think there's phases to all of this shit.
Yeah, and I think it just phases kind of back and forth. I think ultimately at the end of the day, think about it as something that's being taken. It was like, do I think these animals are all conscious enough to like be like, I seen red a lot this week. Probably not going to bite red. Not necessarily, but not necessarily not either.
Right.
Like there is actual proof of like whites working up on Red Lake this weekend. Right. And it's like, why?
And there's not necessarily always or ever an answer to it, but there is like the fact that us as fishermen try so many different things all the time that you land on something that like is the common denominator, and it's like, okay, like I've just used 5 different colors of Tikka minnows or pinheads or whatever.
Yeah.
And for some reason, all of a sudden, I started pounding them on white, and that's held true for the last 3 days. You can't argue something like that.
100%.
So it's like, what the reason is, we're never going to know because we're not a fucking fish.
Right. And
But-
that again, is it just comes down to with anything outdoors. It is all trial and error, but like, when I stop and think about that type of stuff, it's just, my brain kind of goes like, why...
Right.
Why do I go to Shields and spend $60 on lures every year that sit in my fucking tackle box? Or even like last year was a good example of it. I didn't get fishing as much as I would have liked to, but I got fishing enough to like try all of the new shit that I bought. And like it was consistently like nothing was working, and then I went and back to something I've used in the past, and all of a sudden it works again. And so again, there's probably not an answer to it.
No, and that's something like I think the human will argue till the day it dies is like, okay, like, I'm going to have so many tools in my toolbox that I'm prepared for anything because I don't know.
Right.
But yet you kind of still land on something that's tried and true, old faithful, like.
Yeah, like my cousin still to this day uses, they come with the extra spoon. The hell are they called? I feel like it starts with a J. It's like a German name to them.
Oh.
God damn it, I wish I could think of it. They come with the spoon, extra spoons. It comes in a package about this big. It's in foam, and it's laid on the foam.
Swedish pimples.
Swedish pimples.
Not German.
Swedish, German, I was aiming at something. I just poked
Swedish
it.
pimples, yeah. For some reason, I fucking hate them.
And he, till this day, is pulling fish on him like it's his fucking job to do it.
And I've never caught a fish on one.
Neither have I.
And see, that's the weird, crazy thing about all of it. It's like...
Is it just technique? Like, it's so frustrating.
But that's
sometimes.
the amount of variables that come into play. Is like, is he just jigging it slightly different? Does he have something figured out that I don't? Because I can't buy one on it.
Something that I hate is he calls himself the fish whisperer.
Oh, God.
But guess what? It's fucking true.
And see, that's crazy.
And I hope he doesn't listen to this podcast because, goddamn it, if I'm giving him a big head like this, it's gonna be not fun for Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
or
you're
Christmas.
never going to hear that. Hear the end of it.
Not at all. So yeah, those are just weird things. And then like we talked about in the specialty podcast was like we learned all these different techniques, and then now you start kind of double questioning like, okay, was I just jigging shit wrong? And
Right.
so like just proficiently not good at catching fish that day because I was jigging wrong?
Right.
Very possible.
Right.
But there's no guide.
No, and there's nobody to tell you that either. Like, it's at the end of the day, it's an animal versus a human.
And it's all trial and error.
And the only other person we can talk to is another human who doesn't fucking know what an animal is thinking.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we're all just doing what we think is best.
Mm-hmm.
And that just might not be the answer for that day. We see it time and time again for everything.
Yeah, and a lot of times too, I think it's like, well, last year this worked. Or like years past, I've done this 100 times and I've successfully caught 70 fish out of those 100 times,
Right.
you know? And then so you're like, so this is the answer. But then all of a sudden you get some of the days that we've had where all of that comes into play and nothing advances on it.
Yeah,
so you're
nothing
like,
connects. It doesn't work. Like,
you start questioning it at all.
But I also think that's where like all the fun comes into play too. Is like,
Oh, 100%.
at the end of the day, it's kind of by happenstance.
Well, it is fishing, not catching.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and it's
And it's
cliche.
hunting, not killing.
Right.
Like at the end of the day, like you don't, as much as you think that you can control any of it, you don't, because at the end of the day you are going after something that you don't actually fully understand.
You're right, and a lot of times the thing you're going after is avoiding the thing that's coming after it, which would
Right.
be us, the predator. You know, we're predators, and they have a lot of evolution to get away from that. Now, fishing obviously is a little bit different because we don't, our lures don't look like pike coming after them,
Correct.
so why they're running away from us, it makes you question shit.
But does that, I mean, at the end of the day, when you're still talking like pyramid of life, like, have they come to the realization that sometimes the things that they normally eat are maybe killing them?
God, it's, yeah,
You
that's
know
a
what I
tough
mean?
one.
Like, that's a weird
100%.
question
It's
to
a good
ask, but
question.
it's like, you know, like, okay, this thing that looks like a minnow might be the end of me.
Mm-hmm.
Do I just not do it at that? You know, like, do I not do it until I'm 100% sure?
And we've come across that. I mean, we've come across the pickiest of picky fish. Oh my God. Like, especially on red, that was a trial and error that.
Crazy, you know, and it's like, you start to wonder is like, these things of like, need a little more Devil's River.
Little Devil's River, the whiskey. Little Devil's River, the whiskey of the day.
The old DR.
New bottle find.
It ain't bad.
It's not bad.
It ain't bad.
God, we really kicked this thing off with some steamers. Holy shit.
This.
We dove right into that. So, regardless, I mean, again, there's not really answers for it. It's just kind of the trial and error of it all. And you go see some of these big time guys who consistently maintain on fish at all times, but they're also doing it as a full-time thing. So as you're watching these guys, you have to remember these videos they're putting up, they're showing the best.
Yep. And that's the thing too, is like, I've talked to these people and sometimes there's 2 to 3 days worth of filming or trial and error before they actually get what they want to put out to the public.
Yeah, they're doing the same thing we're all doing, which is just trying to get on these things, and
eventually it clicks and eventually they get something that they can put out for us to enjoy to watch.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not how it's going to be all the time.
No. Which just makes the sport better.
It's fun. Like that's half the fun in it. You know, it's frustrating, but it's fun.
It's also pretty easy to get in your own head.
100%.
Holy shit, man. And that's with anything in life. I mean, I like golfing in the summer too, and the worst time I golf is when I think about how I'm golfing. And I'm not a good golfer. Like, let's just make that clear. But like sometimes I'm a better golfer than than other times, right?
Yes.
So we had 2 bad times this year, Monday and Friday of the same week. We had limited ice availability, and we just wanted to get out.
Yep.
So with that, we went to the same lake twice, and
we
got
wanted
fucking
retribution on that lake too.
We
it was
did.
like,
It was like,
you know,
oh,
we
we're
wanted
not-
to come out and be like, okay, like we're not bad fishermen. We're gonna go figure this shit out. And it just so happened that it just still didn't fucking work.
Right. And you're just gonna have that, and it's fine. I mean, I think the whole purpose of it is you're out, and that's important. Like,
Yes, you don't lose fact of
no,
the whole purpose. Like, we sit down and we talked on the first episode about like that's our happy place, that's our safe spot. Like, don't lose sight of that, because throughout the week I was just like, God, are we bad fishermen?
Right.
Are we bad
questioning
hunters?
everything.
Like, are we should we just fucking not do this because we suck at it? Like, you know, and it's like, no, that's just like, we still love it.
that comes back
just
pretty
how it
quickly with like a
boils down.
retribution
Yeah.
thing. You instantly the next day, or you sleep on it, and you go, yeah, but what the fuck else am I gonna do?
Right, like I'm still gonna do it again.
Yeah.
Like, I think at the beginning of the week I was like, I think I'm a bad hunter.
Yep.
And then yesterday I hunted again.
Yep.
You know, and it's like, no fault to me.
No,
It just didn't work.
We're doing all the things that we've been taught and like things we've learned over the years, and sometimes it's just not gonna work.
Right. Like I said, you at the end of the day, through all of this stuff, you're just doing what you think is right, and sometimes it's just not, and that's okay.
That's a part of it though, because I tell you what, after 2 dead days, if we get on even just a few fish, those few fish we do catch are gonna mean more to us than if we had just consistent fishing. And you can be in a testament to that just based on your Canada stuff, is because you were telling me you had days where you got sick of fishing.
Yep.
Because you're just, when you're just wherever you throw it, and there's
Just
like
too easy.
it's almost like it gets to a point where you have days where there's not really a strategy. Well, then you lose that aspect of it being a challenge. And I think that's why a lot of people do this, is like for the challenge.
Yeah.
It's a hell of a lot better than sitting on your couch watching fucking TV. And so, yes, we've had 2 rough days fishing on both the days we've gone out. But ultimately, for me, at the end of the day, that just makes me go, okay, we're going to push a different lake. We're going to push different tactics. We're going to use different baits, and we're going to just try again until we get, the end result that we want.
But see, that's where companies play on
100%.
like the fact of like, okay, like, do I need to do something different? The first thing you fucking go to is you go to the tackle store.
Yeah. You're like, oh, these didn't work.
I get fucking burned on a few birds. The first thing I think of is like, I need more realistic decoys.
Yeah.
I need to go to Dave Smith's. And it's like that's where the market's kind of got our human nature cornered. And maybe it matters, maybe it doesn't. And maybe like we don't have the right thing in our tackle box. And maybe that thing you go buy at Shields does hit that day.
But it won't the next.
Right.
Or
But there's
not.
no absolutes with all of that. Like it's like,
I think we put rhyme or reason to things that actually don't have rhyme or reason. And I think it's really easy from a marketing standpoint to take advantage of that. Is like, oh, you're not catching fish? Well, our guys are catching fish on this.
Yep.
Without the disclaimer of our guys are going out every single day and scouting for the fish that are biting on this.
Right.
So it's a give and a take. If you're working like we are, we work, we're working till we work 40-hour work weeks, sometimes more. And so the time we get out there is the time we have, and that's all we have. So most of you can relate to that if you're getting out during the week, especially. And then if you're just on the weekend, it's even worse, because we get a couple days a week usually where we can sneak out, before nightfall. And some people don't even have that. So if you're going out on the weekends and you're
even
spending
more
a day,
limited.
Yeah. You got one Saturday to be out there, or one Sunday, and I can spend 5 hours out there. And I have a big testament towards that, because I've got a little 2-year-old daughter at home. So for me to like leave my wife, with my daughter for a whole day on a Saturday, Sunday, or even at the work week time, that's still hard, because you ultimately want to be there. So it's like you're pressed for time. And then if you're not seeing results, it can definitely become frustrating. And then you see these things where it's like, Jason Mitchell is catching 100 crappies on blah, blah, blah rig, and you go, God damn it, what am I doing wrong? This is stupid. What? You just have to remember, like, these guys do it professionally and on a day-to-day basis.
Well, and two, like, you're not there, right? Like, at the end of the day, like, so-and-so might be catching them here on this, but we're here experiencing this, right? Like, it's everything, like, you watch all these videos of all of these people that we look up to and these famous people in the industry, and it's like, okay, like, yeah, they're deer hunting in fucking Nebraska right now, and they're killing them this way. Or, like, Joe Heinz is up in Fergus and he's killing them this way, or Jason Mitchell's in Devils and he's catching them this way, and it's like, okay, but that's not this scenario, right? Like it's all situational at the end of the day.
Where you're at, where you're fishing, where you're hunting, what you're hunting with, what you're fishing, it's all just circumstantial.
And then you throw weather into the mix, and you throw, like, there's so many variables that come into play, and we're all basing it off of the things that we watch, and it's like, okay, like, yeah, so-and-so is doing this, I should be doing that too, and it's like, okay, but it doesn't necessarily correlate, it doesn't apply.
Right.
Right? Like, I sit down and I was up in Fergus and we smashed the birds up there, and I come home and I try to replicate something similar, and it's like, okay, but I'm not shooting Fergus birds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're just not there all the time. So
right? And like,
you have to mitigate for where you're at, what your situation is. And at the end of the day, sometimes weather and this and that, it just aren't going to add up.
No,
so you're going to have a shit day, and that is what it is.
Like, to compare, like, Devil's Lake that has this structure and this amount of fish and this population and this style, and, like, take it to apply to a southern Minnesota lake that doesn't match up, that's, you're on a fucking mud basin lake and you're catching roaming fish, but you're fishing a weed line structure fish, like, it's not the same.
100%.
So don't beat yourself up over stuff like that. Like, it's all different.
Yeah. You just maintain, and you're going to have shit days and you're going to have great days, and I think that's what we all come back for at the end of the day. If you caught fish every single day, every time you went out, it's probably not going to be as fun as if you do have a little bit of a lull. Well, and it's not just an excuse, it's like experience over the years, because I can remember several times, even as a kid, getting into ice fishing specifically. Was like, we were sitting in my cousin's ice house, and we would sit out there for 8 hours sometimes. And after 8 hours, we would have 3 fish in the house. And as a kid, I didn't really understand it as much as I do now, just because, like, you were almost bored, I guess.
Yeah.
But even then, it would, like, I would maintain more than my brothers would even, but, like, I've got that resiliency to, I know this is what makes me happy, and so regardless of what I'm catching, hunting, blah blah blah, end of the day, I walk off and I'm like, yeah, we didn't catch shit, but, like, this still for some reason beats sitting on the couch watching some show that I'm mindless watching. And if that's your thing, there's nothing against it, but for me, that works to fill my cup.
Yeah. I think it's something about the chase more than it is the, like, end result.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, at the end of the day, like, we're all chasing after something.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't hit it, you want to chase harder. And if you do hit it, you want to chase it again. And, like, it's just, at the end of the day, it's all about the chase. It's the chase of, like, can I do this? Can I outsmart these fish? Can I outsmart these birds? Can I outsmart this animal? Can I, like...
And then, too, there's something to be said just about the resiliency of, like, ourselves. The fact that we go out in -5-degree weather and we're sitting on the ice chasing after these fish, or we're sitting in, even 10-degree, 15-degree weather, and you're sitting in a deer stand for 4 hours.
Or, yeah, like, real feel laying in a layout blind, a -degree. Like, there's something to say about it. Like,
even if you walk away with nothing, you go, yeah, but I still laid there in this blind, or I still sat there on that ice, and I gave it my all. And ultimately, like, in a sense, like, I don't want to say suffering, because to me, that's not how I feel. I don't feel like I've ever suffered through an experience like that. It was just, like, more like I conquered it.
Endured it.
Right, endured it. That's a better word for it, for sure.
And, like, I think it's even more fulfilling because it's after something that like you legitimately love doing. Like
Mm-hmm.
you can endure almost anything when you enjoy it. Like you have to truly at the end of the day enjoy what you're doing. You have to enjoy the chase. You have to
Yeah.
enjoy the ins and outs of it through and through.
Well, a lot of us can like relate to this, but you go to work every day and if you hate your job, especially, you're pushing as hard as you can to get through it because ultimately you got to put food on the table, right?
Yep.
So, anytime I'm not doing that and doing something hard or something that takes a little more like mental resiliency to push myself through it, excuse me. Ultimately, at the end of that, I've pushed through something that I love now to basically say I don't get a bird, say I don't get a fish. I'm out there because I do love it. So I don't. That's
It's a
still better than
fulfillment.
going to work that you hate and you're
Right.
not enjoying. Like, I came out here with anticipation for getting something, but also
The
that's not expectation.
exactly. Yep.
Anticipation versus expectation, right?
Yep. And I think it's a fulfillment thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you do something because you have to do it or you do something because you want to do it.
Right.
And nobody has to fish.
No.
Nobody has to hunt.
No.
You do it because you want to. Now, when you look at that and you break it down, if you want to hunt, you just want to hunt. You don't have to kill something. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, the goal is already accomplished because you're doing what you chose to do. You didn't have to do it. You chose to do it.
Yeah, you're out there because you want to be out there, and I think there's something to be said about that for sure. It just
Like there's an icing on the cake for sure out
Yeah.
of the deal, but like
you don't necessarily always
nobody's getting
achieve
off
that.
of work and saying, "Hey, I have to go fish.
Mm-hmm.
I have to do this to survive." That's not
We're not
typically
there
the
as a
case,
society.
right?
Yeah.
Like 99% of people aren't living that life. They're saying, "Hey, I like fishing. I want to fish."
Mm-hmm.
So don't lose the fact that you want to go do this activity with the fact of unfulfillment because you didn't catch something or you didn't
Mm-hmm.
shoot something, right? Like,
And I can't help but think, especially to our viewers here, we're probably all on the same board. So maybe we're beating a dead horse at this point, but I like just giving the perspective of it because if you don't think about it, sometimes it does discourage some people.
yeah,
And
100%.
it shouldn't, just because if you're in it and you're enjoying it, it's not necessarily about what you're bringing home. It's just like the experience you had to get there. And again, ultimately you will eventually end up on some birds, or you will end up on a deer, or
Yeah.
you'll end up on some fish, and then like that, all of the trial and error that it took you to get there realistically is what's gonna be the fulfilling part. It's
Right. It all
not
becomes worth it.
slaughtering something every time.
Right. And the fact is like, us as humans do take something away from every outing, every failure, every tough situation. Like, you learn stuff.
Well, and there's
You
always
grow
a
with
story
it.
that comes with
Right.
it. Yeah.
Like you come home and you're like, God, like, sure, nothing flew, but I had this brilliant idea to try this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, okay, like that, you learned something, you tried something, there's fulfillment within that without the end goal of taking something.
I think my favorite part about all of it, honestly, not I shouldn't say it's not my number one, but it's definitely in the favorites. Disattaching from the world. That's
Yes.
where it gets me. When I'm on the ice, I don't think about anything other than what I'm currently doing. That's my cup filling seminar, regardless of what I'm doing or, whatever we catch, whatever we don't catch. Ultimately, I am out there, my brain is clear, and I think as humans, we need that. And that's something that our culture is like moving away from. But realistically, we all started as hunter gatherers. That's how every society, that's the hunter gatherer like style people are the ones who survive cataclysms and
Through
apocalypses,
everything.
all that type of stuff,
Yep.
Those are the people and cultures who maintain throughout of all of history. If you look at any of it, that's the people who maintain. So I think we still do have that primal part of us that once you're out there, it kind of activates it. And I think there's just something to be said. Like, I feel like maybe, and it's not for everybody. Some people just don't have the want or need or whatever to do that. And that's completely fine as well. But like for us, that's what our lives are, or how we continue to live like fulfilled, successful lives, is like getting out there and doing this type of stuff.
Yep. And yeah, that I think that at the end of the day is the most important thing, just to not lose sight of that. Like, it's easy to get wrapped up in the fact of like, oh, you have to have something successful to show for it at the end of the day, and it's like, no, like at the end of the day, like when you look internally, it's like what you just did was so peaceful for you.
Mm-hmm.
It was so cup filling, it was so rewarding just to go do it, regardless of the outcome.
I think stopping to actively acknowledge that is something that's pretty important, especially for me. Went through some tough shit in my own life, and some of those things were what kept me going, is just because you have to be in, whether or not this is triggering words for people, or like, sometimes it puts a bad taste in people's mouths, but realistically, like, mindfulness is a real thing. And so like if you can stop, even if it's for 10 seconds, and I make it a point to do it every time I go out hunting, fishing, whatever it is, and I take a breath and I kind of just look around and enjoy my environment of it. I really do.
It's a perspective thing, right? At the end of the day, like, it's like, once you sit back and acknowledge like the peacefulness and the lack of concern and the emptiness that goes through your, like, you don't have to worry about anything, and you don't.
Yeah. You're in
just
the
exist.
moment. Yep, you're here.
And that perspective, when you sit down and think about it, like, maybe you don't think about it in the moment, but you sit back and you think about it and you're like, God, like, did I worry about a bill, or did I worry about this? Or, like, I just was there.
Yep.
And that's the important thing out of all of it, is like just understanding that is such a safe spot.
Yeah. If you haven't done it, honest to God, take my word for it, don't. Whatever. If you think it's frou-frou, whatever. I'm not frou-frou, but that shit helps. If I just take a moment, even afterwards, and go, God damn. The wind blowing through the trees, it was cold out there, like you're almost in like a more primal state, and you just kind of stop and enjoy it for 10 seconds. I guarantee you'll walk out of whatever hunting, fishing, whatever you're doing, you're going to feel a hell of a lot better. And
So
I
much
use
more
it all the
fulfilled.
time. Yep.
Yep.
It's fun, and that's what it's supposed to be. And we all seem to kind of teeter away from it just because it's really easy to get your fix on literally everything else, whether it be our consumerism or just, your Instagram feed and shit like that. But realistically,
your day-to-day life, or your whatever. Like,
I won't pick up my phone, generally speaking, unless I get a phone call. And usually, like, my wife is about the only one I'll answer when I'm out doing any of this. And to me, that feels so good. So think about it. It's something that should be thought about, and it's something that's not talked about it enough. And again, we're not psychiatrists, psychologists, whatever, but it works really proficiently for us. So something to think about next time you're out. It's for fun. Don't forget that. Don't get frustrated. Don't snap your poles. Don't snap your golf clubs. God damn it. Don't snap nothing. Don't throw your gun in the garbage, whatever it is. It's for fun. We do this for fun. The podcast is for fun. Filling cups.
That's all it is. At the end of the day, that's all we're doing. And, like I said, at the end of the day, we're talking to like-minded people. If you're listening to it, you more than likely can relate. This is maybe a different style of podcast than we normally do, and this is
we got pretty deep on this one. This actually
is deep. Like, this is big on mental health. This is like big on cup filling, and like I think that's awesome. And we don't have a ton of stuff going on for us right now. We're in a slump fishing, we're in a slump hunting, but when you sit back and you have these conversations and you think about these things, you realize that it doesn't matter.
Yep.
So I don't care that this is how the podcast went. This is important, and I think people can relate to it, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah. So take it as it is. Take it however you take it. That's our perspective on it. We didn't even plan on getting this deep about it, but honestly, it really does just apply to more people than they think. And you can think it's frou-frou, you can think it's this and that. I'm not telling you to hug your buddy every time you see him or nothing, but here we go. There we go. Right there. It's important that you're just doing it to do it, not the hugging, just the hunting, fishing in general.
No, and it's spending time with like-minded.
Yeah, man.
I mean, when you can get to that point, it is so self-rewarding and self-fulfilling. Like, when nothing else matters.
Did we talk about your Fergus hunt last time?
I
don't know if we did.
I don't know if we did.
Because you got your first banded goose, right?
I did.
That's awesome.
Over 10 years, and I got my first honker band.
Big band.
Big bands.
Big band nerd.
Bands
will make her dance. Copyright to you, right?
No, that was kind of cool. I mean, it went down. So there was a small flock that did it on the right side of the pit, and me and Max, the other Max, were the only two that shot at it.
Two Maxes. And the way that the birds were picked up, we weren't really sure whose was whose. We were kind of sitting here. He's like, "Oh, I think I shot that far bird." He was the far right. I was kind of towards the middle a little bit more. You didn't really know how they fell and everything. So we did a coin flip for it. We were the only two that shot. There were two dead birds. We knew that. And I came out the gate. It's tails. I said, it's going to be tails. Flipped it, tails. And then, of course, Max goes, "I think you shot that bird anyways." So that coin flip probably didn't even matter, but I won it anyways. I think I got my bird. I mean, at the end of the day, we were kind of both in agreement that probably was mine anyways. It just so happened to be that it was, that bird. But you were meant to get that bird, man.
It feels that way.
I mean, you won the coin flip, you hit it, you shot it.
You do question, the whole group rings out on a bird, and
nobody knows.
Right. But when you got only two guys and the other guy's I'm pretty sure that one wasn't mine.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. It feels like it was supposed to be.
Well, and they landed far enough apart too, to where a guy could kind of figure it out from where you shot, and
Right.
where he shot, and
like he was like, okay, like, you know, Joe comes back with 2 birds in hand, and it's like, okay, one of them's banded. You don't know which one he picked up that was banded. Like, it's hard to tell, but at the end of the day, like, it's like, okay, like, you know, you saw him pick that one up in his left hand, and then he goes, picks up the far bird in the right hand, and he comes back, and the left-handed bird's banded.
Mm-hmm.
You can kind of assume, kind of thing.
Yeah, you can, too, like, what bird was I aiming at? If you really start to think about it, you can kind of figure it out.
Yeah, and, like, it makes sense for him to have shot the far bird because he was on the far end of it, right? Like, that's just how it kind of, like, by the book you're supposed to shoot. Like,
yep.
You know, like, you let the middle people shoot the middle birds, you let the outside people shoot the outside birds, and it just kind of works that way. So when you break it down, it's like, yeah, you almost start to think it's like, okay, like, was it supposed to be, like...
Right.
It kind of... There was something that was, like, not even a question. It's like tails.
Yeah. That worked out
for some reason, like, the 50-50 flip still lands on tails, and it's like, okay, like...
Yeah. It worked out in your favor, and also, like, so I always kind of have believed in everything happens for a reason anyways.
Right.
As cliche as it sounds, but I just do. I've had a lot of things in my life where it was like, oh, like, mostly my perspective on that came from most of the dumb hard shit I've done, to where it's like, oh, okay. I started to believe it more probably in the last couple of years than ever before, because I was like, oh, well, this happened, and now it was hard as fuck to begin with, but it gave me this. So
yeah,
I think it's a big application to a lot of things in life. And
the weird thing is like, and it's kind of eerie that you sit down and you think, and you're like, okay, like, if that was my bird and I was supposed to get it, yet it came down to like a true like 50-50 probability coin flip, yet it still landed in my favor. Like, that's kind of creepy to sit and think about. It's like, if that's your bird and you deserve it, like,
otherwise, I mean, you both have shotguns, you could have just dueled over it.
Well, that's what they said too, is like, I've never seen a fight to the death.
And it's might not even have to be the death. The guy who takes the most BBs in the leg loses.
Yeah, that's fair.
1, 2, 3, draw.
Max pussied out. He's like, "Oh, dude, that's your bird, totally." Like,
yeah,
that was your man. I think that was yours. I don't want to fight over it. You know, but it's like, it comes down to probability, but somehow the universe is still like, "Yeah, that's yours," so it's gonna be tails.
Well, ultimately, regardless, it sounded like you guys had a pretty good hunt up there. You took a pretty good haul of birds home.
We smashed them pretty good up there, and it was weird, you know. Like, we did a pit hunt, and it was our first pit hunt, and they didn't roll like we thought they were going to. You know, like, they didn't start coming off the roost until a little bit later, but when they did, it was like, it was hot and heavy.
And
then
I love it hot and heavy.
You know, they started coming off on the right side, and we were killing them off the right, and then it was like, all of a sudden they were just killing them off the left, and it was like almost everybody in the pit got their fair share at birds. And then it's like, okay, it started getting so hot and heavy that it was like, okay, we're gonna put the nail in the coffin on this one. We're gonna dial it in. By the end of it, Danny and Lester were the only ones left with birds. And it was like 1:30, and Danny was like, okay, we can probably call it whenever. I don't have to kill them all,
Right.
We'd already killed 9 limits. It's like, we don't need to do 2 more birds, whatever. Like, if it happens, it happens, kind of thing. And, we had 10 people in the blind, and I think we killed 48 or 47, but I think we were 3 shy of a full 10-man limit.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, that's fucking wild, and you don't get that every time, and especially when you're doing like a guided kind of pit blind hunt, something like that. It's going into it once again. Anticipation versus expectation are 2 very different things. So, like, not knowing either one of those, you're anticipating to see birds and probably get, but to come that close to a limit, especially with how hunting's been around here, that's a fucking win, man.
100%.
Like hunting around here has been bullshit this year. It hasn't been great. Everybody's kind of talked about not having a super great year. And so to go out and find a place where you can actually be successful, again, made it 10 times better.
Yeah. And you know, like somehow like we had already set up, you know, like I had that set up since August. We hit it on the fucking head, like snowstorm on Wednesday. They absolutely smashed them on Thursday. Of course, it's still going to be almost just as good on Friday.
Yep.
You know, so we were there Friday and it was like, okay, like every pit in Fergus limited out on Thursday.
Yeah.
You know, like they smashed them. I killed a full limit on Wednesday back here for ducks. Like I knew that snowstorm was going to be good, so I was like, I got to go out tonight. Killed the solo limit. Thursday they smashed them up there. Friday we fucking killed them too. You know, like it was just it just so happened that it worked out. Like the weather, the migration. Like finally we got some weather. Yep. Finally a bunch of new birds pushed in. And just we just killed them, and they killed them for like 5 days straight up there after that too, which was nuts.
Everything was kind of just in line.
It was like the stars aligned, and it's like,
yep.
How the fuck does that happen? I don't know.
There it is again to our point.
Right.
If you wait, good things will happen.
If you build it, they will come.
Yeah, they will come, and they did. I'm gonna come. Ugh, don't come. Don't come.
I'm gonna come.
I do have to take maybe a pause.
A little potty break?
I gotta piss like a Russian racehorse. I gotta be honest.
We're gonna pause it here.
We're back. Pee break.
Quick little potty break.
You know how it is. You gotta go. You gotta go.
It ain't nothing new.
This is a good little river into the whiskey of the week.
The Devil's River.
We're drinking the D River here.
The DR, the Dominican Republic.
It's... God, that'd be nice. It'd be nice to be there, boy. Oofta.
This is specifically their agave bourbon, which is kind of something new for us.
Initially very kind of...
gross.
Yeah, like the shock of it was... Very sweet, very
shock factor
overpowering.
10 out of 10.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm like, whoa, I'm not sure I like this.
The first sip I took, I actually did one of those like and like unintentionally. But then the second drink came along and I said, you know, this ain't half bad.
It's actually like weirdly kind of okay, like kind of pretty good.
It very much so has an agave smell to it.
Yeah, so like agave, like relating to tequila style, like super sweet, like I don't know, like I almost relate it to like some sort of artificial sweetener, like I would put like agave into like my coffee or something. Like it feels like it's like overly sweet.
Yeah,
which is fine sometimes.
Definitely not bad. I actually mixed a couple of ginger ales in with it. Hate me or don't, whatever.
We've talked about this.
Yeah,
we don't care how you drink it.
I don't care how you drink it.
Snobs.
No, I drink a lot of whiskeys just on ice, and I have my preferences. This one was new. It was overly sweet. I also have to behave myself, so I put some ginger ale in it, and it wasn't bad. Yeah. So I'm also now just drinking it straight again.
Yep, we're back to our tasting, like our true tasting notes.
Honestly, it's not a bad bottle buy. What'd you pick it up for?
$29.99.
That's not a bad bottle,
I think for it's a $30 bottle.
It's something kind of fun and different to have in your stockpile.
I went into Arnold's Liquor Emporium, the old Janesville liquor store, and I was a little bit skeptical on the fact of like we've done a lot of bottles from town here, and I was like, God dang it! Like I don't want to do a repeat. You know, we're kind of like starting to This is our 13th episode, 15th including our special edition episodes.
Yep.
And I don't want to repeat anything.
Right. So it's hard to not.
Yeah,
especially at our
so
bottle
many
price.
things, and like you know, when you take into consideration budget and stuff like that, like you know, we're not.
Well, we spent all of our money at the fucking ice show.
Yeah, so we got to be kind of conscious about what we're spending our money on. I am more than happy with $30 for this, especially after it kind of like settled, and it's like it's pretty fucking good now.
It is. We've drank a good portion of the bottle. We did drink it on our specialty podcast too. So, I mean, we're not complete soaks, but if the wives are listening, we actually haven't had more than a glass.
Yeah, it's just one.
Yeah, it's one big glass.
It's one giant big glass.
No, it's good. The agave is very, very
It's interesting.
heavy in it. You can definitely taste it. It's not your traditional like bourbon to where you get that kind of sweet up front, burn in the back. It's more kind of sweet all the way through.
Yeah,
not too much of a burn.
It never cooks you out.
No. I would recommend to a friend. My recommendation to a friend would probably be like a 7 out of 10, 6.5, 7, somewhere right in there.
Yeah.
It's not my favorite bottle of bourbon I've ever had. Is it bourbon? It's agave bourbon.
Yep.
So I don't know if that's like maybe a new concept or something, but it's definitely very good.
It's kind
good
of
plain.
I wonder, like, you know, you get all these bourbons that do like barreled in red wine.
Mm-hmm.
You get them barreled in all these different things, and it's like agave's kind of new.
Yeah.
So it's like you wonder, like, if you start to see these tequila companies tipping into, like, okay, like, I'm going to cross-brand with a bourbon.
Well, there's so many things now. I mean, we've tried them, too, where, like, bourbon aged in wine barrels, stuff like that, too, which I still have yet to find one that I'm like, oh, my God, write home about it.
Yeah.
Because I've probably had 3 of those types of bottles. Picked that one up. Like when you start going to super big spots, like you go to like a Total Wine, it's almost overwhelming. I do love going to those places though because it is overwhelming. You can spend an hour
a lot
in
of
there.
options. Yep.
So like that's usually where I'll pick something like that up, and the 2 out of the 3 were okay, and then I know I've had a really bad one. So I think that's a big thing right now in the market is just like trying it with things that traditionally weren't in bourbons or whiskey in general. So
Yep. So this one it's an 1840 Devil's River agave bourbon. It's only 80 proof, which makes sense why it's not super spicy, and then you slap the sweetness on top of it. Kissed with agave nectar, this tasty bourbon is crafted to provide a smooth and slightly sweet finish. I would argue that it's a pretty heavily sweet finish. I mean, like I said, it slapped you in the face at the beginning. It was like, whoa. Like, the first whiff of it was like, holy shit. Like, I don't know if this is going to be any good.
it's super sweet. Like under my jaw is where I felt it right away. I took that first sip and it sent the spikes under my jaw, and I was like,
yeah, I'm gonna be honest, it's pretty fucking good though, actually.
yeah, I've enjoyed drinking it for sure.
I will say it's pretty light. I mean, in realms of bourbon, it's not uncommon to see 90 to 100 proof. You know,
If you guys want the sound of it. That's the sound of it. Makes a big difference what it sounds like.
you know, like a lot of your spicier stuff, you're tipping into ryes in the 110 or so, but this is 80 proof. It's pretty mild. I mean, it's pretty friendly as far as things go. Like, for people who don't like bourbons,
Yeah.
Like, if you don't like spicy, alcohol-y bourbons,
This would be...
It's pretty forgiving in that sense.
I feel like we should read through the tasting notes. Just because we have in the past.
Yeah. So, as far as Devil's River's website goes, color says rich golden amber with honey highlights. I would agree 100%. It's a very light bourbon. Your darker stuff tends to be hotter. It tends to be a little more aggressive. This is very, very friendly as far as the color goes. On the nose, we get a spiced gingerbread and honey, which
I'd argue that.
I don't. That's a tough one.
Maybe the honey. I don't smell the gingerbread.
No, I feel like the ginger should be more pronounced in a gingerbread.
Right, that's pretty... Because we've had whiskeys where it was very, like,
ginger aggressive. Yeah.
Ginger-esque.
And I wouldn't pick up on that. Especially not, like, when you say spiced gingerbread, like, to me, like, that's such an aggressive taste and smell.
It tastes... Or it smells boozier than it tastes. For sure. Like, when you smell this, you're like, ooh, this sucker's gonna burn. But
yeah,
it doesn't.
And it doesn't. Taste, we're talking ripe fruit, spicy sweet pepper, and whipped butter.
I could see the whipped butter.
Yep, and I can totally get behind the ripe fruit.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, it's so sweet that, like, any spicy anything just goes right out the window.
I'd agree.
So the ginger's gone. Like, when you talk spicy sweet pepper, like, I picture what they're saying. I can taste what they're saying. It's not really what they're saying. Like, I'm not getting spicy anything from it.
No, I'd agree. It's not a spicy whiskey. It's a very nice, tame, smooth, sweet whiskey. As far as bourbons go, it's not as bourbony, I feel, as most, but it's still...
As arguably anything we've ever tasted on the podcast, probably.
Yeah.
Now, I will say, like, the very, very last, like the back end of the swallow, if you're gonna argue any, like, heat at all... There's the slightest bit of, like, finished heat.
Yep, there's a little burn at the back end, enough to
but
be...
But it's like, it follows so quickly with sweetness to where it's not uncomfortable, it's not gross, like...
No, the back of my tongue isn't spicy. I taste more of the front of the tongue, which is nice and sweet, and it's not... I wouldn't even argue that it's overly sweet.
No.
I wouldn't go any more sweet.
No, I think any more sugar or sweetness or agave or anything, like, it would be overbearing, but...
If you went heavier with your pour in a old-fashioned, I would honestly argue, so you do a double shot of this in your old-fashioned, you could probably do less sugar.
No syrup.
Yeah, like, I wouldn't do simple syrup in it because the agave picks that up pretty easily.
Yeah.
But you throw a cherry in there, and I would probably do a little extra orange bitters.
Extra bitters. Yep.
For me, anyways.
Something to dial it back just a smidge.
Yep.
Like, you don't need any extra sweetness, so you don't need a sugar cube.
I wouldn't put a sugar cube in this.
No, you don't need syrup. You don't need... I think it's plenty fine on its own.
Throw your cherry and an orange peel in there, and you'd have a nice, solid, like...
I'd really like to try this as a straight-up old-fashioned with just some bitters and a cherry.
Yep,
because I think it would be dialed. I think you dialed with some just like 2 or 3 ice cubes.
Do your orange peel, a nice solid orange peel, and give that a swirl around the glass there. Oh yeah.
I think this is dialed for an old fashioned.
Mm-hmm.
I really do.
Would recommend, like I said, 6.5 to 7 out of 10. I would recommend for a friend. We've had bottles on here that I wouldn't give to a enemy. So
Yeah.
this is a good one.
I think this is one that it's very forgiving for somebody who's just getting into bourbons.
If you have a light bourbon palate, this would be a good whiskey to start on because there's not an overwhelming burn at the end of it to where it would stray you away from bourbons. Realistically, the taste profile is really good. And honestly, if you're just sniffing it, the sniff is very strong, but the taste is very light and forgiving. So, again, I would give it a 6.5 to 7 to recommend for a friend. And this has been a Tyler Bourbon Tasting, brought to you in part by Kellogg's. They're great.
Devil's River Agave Bourbon.
No, good stuff. Give it a whirl, guys. Let us know what you think. Something we missed on here throughout the cast is you got a bow. New bow. Who dis?
New bow, who dis?
New Bohemia.
New bear bow. Not naked. Not specifically for bears. But
it's a bear bow.
Bear bow. Old Fred Bear makes a pretty good bow in my opinion.
I got a little glimpse at it. I haven't got to see the full Taki. What is that rated for? What's your pullback?
55 to 75, I believe, if I remember correctly.
That's a big pull.
It's a big pull, which I think, and don't fucking haze me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure out of the box they come somewhere in the middle, so it should be 65.
Oh, man, you're getting paddled.
I might be getting freaking paddled.
You're getting hazed. No, boy.
It feels about right.
Oh, that's good then.
So,
I mean, if you can out of the box pull back a bow and be content with it, that's not a bad bow.
my thing is like, one, I would like to pull on the upper end of pretty much anything. I mean, at the end of the day, you get more kinetic force with more drawback, right? Like, I mean, at the end of the day, in a perfect world, you're pulling back as heavy as you can pull back.
Mm-hmm.
I feel pretty content with where it came out of the box, which is awesome. This bow, so I got the Bear Adapt 2, which I got the Ready to Hunt version, which I kind of regret because, so I was shooting a Diamond Liberty, and the Diamond Liberty is very forgiving and very flexible to where I can hand it down to my wife.
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of hoping that I can take all of the accessories off of what I was shooting, put it on the new Bear bow, and take the Bear bow accessories that came Ready to Hunt and put it on the Diamond. Well, the Diamond is 10 years old.
Now you fucked up.
Yeah. So the Bear bow has Picatinny rails, and the accessories don't fit on the Diamond.
Picatinny rails.
Picatinny.
Picatinny.
So I wanted to put my accessories off my Diamond because I have a Garmin sight and I have a nice drop rest and all of this nice stuff. But the stuff that came off of the Bear bow doesn't go on the Diamond, so I'm gonna have to get some new stuff for the Diamond. It's no big deal, but
Yeah, it sucks when you're kind of anticipating something to still maintain what you had, but
the thing is like the progression of bows has changed and we've been outdated. The Diamond is still a great bow.
that's what you get for not feeding into all of the shit today.
Yeah. Well,
You should have just bought a new bow every like 2 years.
Should have bought a new bow every 2-3 years.
Yeah.
So Danny's gonna shoot the Diamond Liberty. I'm gonna put a new sight and a new rest on it for her. I'm gonna put the Garmin sight on the Bear bow.
Will it work?
Yep. Yep, I got all that stuff on it. So I got my drop rest and my Garmin sight on it.
Is that new or is that from the old bow?
The Garmin stuff?
Yeah.
That's from the old bow.
Oh, okay.
So it's only about a year and a half old.
But, well, then you're good there, I guess.
Yeah, and like
maybe you can. Okay, so if anybody's looking for some Bear bow accessories, Max is going to be your guy.
Yes, if you have Picatinny mounts and you want a 4-pin sight or a whisker biscuit, let me know.
These all sound like made up names, but it's fine.
Whisker biscuit.
Made up.
Whisker biscuit.
Whisker biscuit. Yeah. If you guys are looking for some whisker biscuit, go to your local bakery and ask for them.
Go to your local Burley Bakery.
Burley Bakery.
No, so that's the thing, is I'm probably going to hold on to that stuff unless somebody makes me a really lucrative offer. It'll be a pretty good backup. I will say I'm really, really impressed with the Bear bows. I've never shot a bear before.
Have you still never shot it?
I shot it now.
You did shoot it?
I did shoot it.
In town?
No.
I'm just calling the sheriff's department. It's fine.
No. Not in town. No, I'm pretty impressed with how it came out of the box. And I will say, like, the Picatinny stuff doesn't really matter. I was able to put all my old stuff onto it. It fit perfectly. It shoots incredibly. I am extremely excited to shoot it for spring turkey.
Yeah, that'll be fun. You had talked about getting into some deer hunting, which is surprising because we cut fucking 200 of them up every year.
Yeah. The thing is, at the end of the day, is in the fall to winter period, if we have another year like this that has slightly worse ice, I need to do something to stay sane.
I know, I hear you.
I have to.
I'm not hunting deer. I'm gonna pick up some baccarat or something.
Baccarat?
Yeah. No, I'm not gonna do that either.
A little cribbage.
We could probably like pick up some more card nights or something.
We could do some card nights. That would be fun.
Because arguably,
baccarat is not it.
No, I don't. I have no interest in learning that. No, but it would be fun to do some more card nights. That's something we all forget. God damn it. I feel like this is just a off bracket touch point, but I grew up in a card family.
Yep.
And I don't think we play enough cards anymore.
No.
And this is the time of year.
Even if you play stupid card games.
We played King's Cup.
Yeah?
At Family Thanksgiving. Where you stick the card into the tab till it pops.
Yep.
Haven't played that since like college years.
It's still so fun.
Oh my god, it was fun. Stayed up way too fucking late playing it, but
of course. That's usually what happens when you play cards.
No, 100%. Get back into playing cards. If there's anybody young listening to this who goes, well, I don't like playing cards. Well, when's the last time you tried?
Learn your cards.
Little bastards. God damn it.
And learn how to count them, too.
Yeah. 100%. Good luck, but yeah.
We play a lot of rummy.
I like rummy, euchre, buck euchre, wizard is a fucking game, boys and girls. Listen up here. Go pick your guys up. Go pick yourselves up a game of wizard, it's called. Don't buy the cheap one with the stupid cardboard bid games, but it's kind of like euchre in a sense.
Okay. I don't know if I've ever played a wizard.
Well, good, because whatever you're doing this weekend, cancel it, because you're going to come over and play that. But that's when we play with the fam. I think you can play up to 6 players. It's either 6 or 8. I don't remember, but it's kind of like euchre. You high card lead, or there's a trump suit, right? And then whatever's led, you follow suit with.
Okay.
And then pre-hand, you bid on what you think you're going to take for tricks.
Okay.
Yeah. And so you go through your hand and you try and get your trick amount. And if you go over, basically you're minus 10. If you get exact on, you're plus 20. And then every trick you take, it's plus 10. So it's pretty fun because you have to be really strategic about it. That's a super fun game to play, especially if you do like euchre, because that's a euchre-esque game.
Euchre-esque.
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 Man, we kind of touched on everything we got for right now. We're hoping to get some more fishing in, obviously, this week. This will be posted on Monday. It's currently Wednesday. And so we're going to try and get out fishing, get you guys some more content. Talked about a lot today. Listen in to the special episode that we're posting, and we'll kind of go from there. We talked about the ice show, more info on that. Other than that, I think that's about all we got for you guys tonight.
I think so.
We appreciate you guys listening, as always. Tune in next week for some more fun stuff. If there's something you want to hear, let us know. Got a lot of socials. Burley Outdoors is a really good way to get a hold of us. Otherwise, I don't even know. We're in this, and I have no idea if you can comment on Spotify or any of that.
I would think so.
We got our YouTube videos up, so
yeah,
we'll try and kind of check in on that.
Comment, follow, all
that good stuff.
Your thing.
I hate being the guy to even say that, but
we don't know what we're fucking doing.
No, we have no idea. It's fine though. We're having fun. So if you like it, listen and tell your friends. Again, we talked about it in our specialty episode. Check out the Heroes.
Hometown Heroes Outdoors.
Yep, Hometown Heroes Outdoors.
.org.
It's a pretty cool thing for like vets, first responders, all those types of things. It's a really cool program. Check back on our last episode. We talk a little bit more about it, but it's definitely worth the look into. It's a really cool program. It's
something that I feel semi-obligated to talk about again. Like, just check them out. What they do is awesome. If you haven't listened to our specialty episode from the ice show, check it out, because it is really something really cool that they're doing. We highly encourage anybody who can support them to do so. And just, I mean, what they do is really special.
They're taking these guys out hunting, fishing, hiking. They're just getting them outdoors. People who relate to other people who have gone through some hard shit. And so as outdoorsmen, it's just something that we can all kind of adhere to. We all know it's our peace point, like we've talked about. So give them a look. That's the hat I'm wearing currently. I picked it up only to support them because, again, I said this in the last one, but if my wife finds out I bought another hat, she's gonna shoot me. So
we store it back here.
Yeah, back in the
little hat
that way
back there in the little closet.
Yeah. So don't tell my wife. But anyways, guys, thank you so much again. Appreciate you listening in. Keep telling your friends about us. If they're interested in some outdoors bullshit talk, this is us. That's what we're doing. We got a little bit of everything going on. So, thanks again. We all hope you have a good night. And as we close to the holidays, probably have another one next week. We'll probably not have one the week of Christmas. We're going to try. We'll see what happens. But just bear with us. Thanks again, and good night. Cheers. Clink.
Bye.